popping up on social media. I follow climbing, I love climbing, it's in my DNA. And then one day I realized that he and his wife Hannah had moved to South Lake Tahoe. And I realized, like, we've got to get Tanner to stand up and do a presentation. Everyone should meet Hannah, they're part of our community. And that's really the spirit of tonight. And this is as exciting for me as I'm sure many of you in the room, because I think the tagline on our little poster email was "New Kid on the Block." I can't wait to learn about your journey. And I hope that's what we're going to hear tonight. Let's see, the most important thing I was supposed to say is that the only reason that Tanner agreed to do this is because we're going to do a little bit of fundraising, and it's for a nonprofit that Tanner cares deeply about, and it's called Crux, right? Crux Wilderness Therapy. Tanner's going to talk a lot more about it, the details, but it's getting veterans out for climbing, and it's outdoor therapy. I just butchered that, but you can give it more detail. But the reason I'm bringing that up is we're going to auction off 3 items at the end of this event. There's, Tor, I don't know if you can hold these up, but we have 2 photographs that are, one is it's a signed print of Alex Honnold that I shot, and it's him speed soloing the nose. Alex signed it, I signed it, and if you win that one, that's the one on the right, you'll also get one of my books. And then the photograph on the left it's just one of my favorite photos. It's Kevin Gallagher in Los Remotos, and you'll get an entire set of Super Topo guidebooks with that photograph. And then the grand prize, and think about how much you're willing to pay for this stuff because it's going to Crux, is a day with Tanner, and he will that's the real prize, and the deal is he will drag you up. It'll be anaerobic the entire day, and he'll drag you up every route at Lover's Leap. I'm making that up, but whatever you want to do, you have a day with Tanner climbing. That's super generous to donate that. So think about those 3 things: the signed prints, the books, and most importantly, the day with Tanner, all of it going to Crux. So without further ado, Tanner, I'm glad you showed up tonight. We're all thankful. Thank you for doing this.
Okay. You guys want to talk about? Cool. Well, thanks for showing up. I've never done anything even remotely like this before. This is really cool. I like that you guys do this as a community. We're really stoked to be here. The Sierras felt like home for Hannah and I since we first went there 5 years ago, and we decided to stop fighting it and just put roots in the ground here, and we're excited to develop this community. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we got here, and I hope that you take something out of it. I guess if nothing else, that you can be totally unremarkable and just put in a lot of work and do some cool stuff. So we'll get this going. This is the least efficient road to Tahoe. This is also, I also want to say, this is the first time I've ever really had an opportunity or requirement to dig into my own, I guess, history or past or whatever, and kind of really get into the weeds on everything. And I think it's really easy when you're climbing mountains to just kind of left foot, right foot, and stare at your feet. But it's really important to stop every once in a while and look back and realize how far you've come or how you got there and stuff like that. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do that. I wouldn't be up here talking if you guys didn't care enough to come out here and watch. So yeah, we'll get going here. Cool. So as Corey was saying, I'm the vice president for a nonprofit 501c3 called Crux Wilderness Therapy. I'm biased, but it is the best nonprofit that is out there. We basically, our mission statement is to provide long-term sustainable mental health resources to all veterans or active duty service members. And the idea is that we're breaking down all the barriers to entry to get into the outdoors. So we provide free AMGA guides for veterans or service members to get outside. We do clinics every single weekend rotating around Southern California. And the idea is just to try something new, get outside and try to experience something that maybe you wouldn't otherwise if you didn't have the money to hire a guide or you didn't know anybody that climbed that could take you out and stuff like that. So this whole presentation is basically a Crux success story for me, and this is kind of my own story about how I found climbing, and it really dramatically improved my life in the most serious way. And that's kind of the best case scenario that exists for a nonprofit, is something like this, where they come out and as soon as they touch the rock, it just clicks and they're like, oh man, this is it. And now they have this new hobby and something they can really pour themselves into. Cool. We're gonna pick up the story in 2010 at the end of high school. This first slide is gonna be really jarring, so just prepare yourself. Okay. I was a little bit out of control coming out of high school, doing a tremendous amount of partying and drinking, just a totally rudderless ship with no male figures in my life to smack me around and tell me that I was an idiot, which I really needed at the time in a bad way, obviously. I made what I think is the best decision of my entire life, leaving high school, and that was to commit myself to the re-education program that is the Citadel. It's a military college in South Carolina. It is the Citadel. It's an absolutely incredible campus here. It's right on the Ashley River in Charleston. I think Charleston's like one of the best cities on planet Earth. But the school is just not a good time, and it's in the most profound way. So this is freshman year. It's called knob year. You have to shave your head bald with a razor every single week for your entire freshman year. You march to breakfast, you march to lunch, you shine your shoes. Like it's not sick. But it was really necessary at the time. So these are just some shots of what freshman year looked like, and sophomore year. These are like sophomores and juniors in the background. It doesn't get any cooler once you're on the other side of it. But it instilled a good set of guidelines and discipline in me, I think, that I really desperately needed at the time. I really struggled with the military bearing side. As you can see, you're not supposed to be smiling and looking around like this. I'm not the most stoic person. I historically am like, if I'm happy, you're gonna know I'm happy, and if I'm aggravated, you probably know that too. I'm working on it. So this was later, and then after that, after freshman year, we made it to sophomore and junior year. So a weird thing about the Citadel, I guess that's different than regular colleges. You can't work at the Citadel. You're not even allowed to leave campus Monday to Friday, and you can leave on the weekends, but you can't stay out. It's like legitimately like an institution. So you would, if you're not getting financial support from your parents or something, you'd have to work all summer in order to save up enough money to, supplement your weekend lifestyle, I guess. So the summer after my junior year of college, I worked at State Farm Monday to Friday. I became the youngest licensed insurance sales agent in the state of South Carolina, which was also not sick. I learned a lot about myself that summer, and the biggest thing I learned was I'm not going to sit behind a desk. I can't do it. It's not good for me. It's not good for my coworkers. Nobody wins. I have ADD or ADHD. It just wasn't for me. And so I came into my senior year now realizing that I just cut off like 98% of job opportunities. And I'm like, well, what in the hell am I going to do now? Because I'm living in the South. Like it's what you do. You go to college and you go get a job that you put on a nice button down and you go sell stuff, and like that's how it works. So I was again rudderless at this point. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. My two best friends at the time, Danny and Jay, had just picked up special forces contracts to go be Green Berets. It doesn't guarantee you to be a Green Beret, it just guarantees you the opportunity to try to be a Green Beret, so you get to go to the selection. And they kind of flippantly threw out the idea of, hey, have you looked at like Navy SEAL stuff? And I didn't know what SEALs were. I didn't know what they did. I grew up swimming. That's probably the thing I was best at in the water. I swam competitively. Would have, in theory, done that in college if I had gone to a school that had sports. But yeah, so I kind of did a quick Google search, and I saw them jumping out of planes and shooting guns. I was like, this sounds great. Like, this sounds cool. On a whim, immediately went into the recruiter's office and dropped a SEAL Challenge contract, which is this kind of the same thing. It just guarantees you an opportunity to go to BUD/S and try to make it. So yeah, this was first semester senior year on a weekend. Went and swore in with a bunch of 17-year-old high school kids to go to Navy boot camp. ended up finishing senior year, graduated in May of 2014. The whole costume here, this is my sister and brother, and straight to boot camp and shipped out right away. There is no worse situation than graduating a military college and then going to boot camp. It's like finishing, it's like getting your master's in calculus and then spending a year in like third grade. You know, it's mind numbing. You're learning how to they teach you how to march and how to fold clothes, and it's an insane place. So this was boot camp, and then directly after boot camp, we went straight to Buds. This was first day of school at Buds. The old pictures. Everybody in the class takes these pictures and they put them up on this huge board. We had 220 students start Buds, and then we went into phased with 156 or 154, and we finished with 6 of those original guys. So it's pretty small numbers. Attrition is fairly high. You don't make too many friends until you're pretty far along because they're probably not going to be there tomorrow. And then there's been this weird cycle of hair being this status symbol in my life, where I've had to shave it freshman year of college, and then junior year of college, and then at boot camp, and then at Buds, and then again, I've had to shave my head 10 times. So I will never shave my head again, and I probably won't shave my face either because I don't have to anymore. So Buds is basic underwater demolition SEAL school. It's SEAL training. They just essentially beat the crap out of you for 6 months. It's really just a selection. You don't learn a whole lot. You end up learning how to dive later in the program and shoot guns and some demolition stuff. But essentially, Buds exists to just weed out the people that aren't as committed as the rest of us. And it's just a really profoundly bad time. You just play with telephone poles all day, and they put you in the water. You're wet and sandy. You don't sleep very much. The whole idea is just to make it as miserable as possible, and then just take whoever's left, and that's when you're going to go to the actual training afterwards. So this was me after Hell Week. I had rhabdo really bad, and I was septic. I had to actually get rushed to the hospital right after this. Not the worst state we've ever been in, but one of them. This is in 2015, and graduated Buds later in 2015. This was just that shot from a nice closed ceremony. After Buds, you go to SEAL qualification training, which is SQT. This is where you actually learn all the cool stuff. You're doing the stuff that you feel like you signed up to do. You're, learning how to use all the fancy technology and shooting sniper rifles and jumping out of planes and really actually fun stuff for a young man at that time. The first stop in SQT for our class was Kodiak, Alaska. We did a month of cold weather survival and winter warfare training up there. And this was really my first exposure to the mountains, basically in my entire life. I grew up on the East Coast in Florida and South Carolina. I had never really been to the mountains in general, ever. So this was a really eye-opening experience for me. I immediately really I identified with the landscape. I was just this is awesome. This is so sick. So this was a big trip for me. Additionally, in SQT, we started flying with air platforms quite a lot, and I just loved it. I was this is the coolest thing. Anytime we're in a helicopter or plane, I just thought it was it's every little boy's dream, just be flying around. So I had a real affinity for the air, and the cool thing about the SEAL teams is you can really pick your specialty and go as far down that path as you could possibly imagine. They basically have an open line of funding for any schools that exist anywhere in the world. So you can find some hey, there's this advanced course in Sweden, and they'll pay for you to go to it as long as it's going to further the team. So I went down the air path quite a bit. This was one of my first jumps ever. They specifically said nobody better be taking selfies up there. One of the first jumps ever, and then this was a jump where I got my jump master qual. I ended up going to a ton of follow-on courses like this, and became a skydive instructor and an air ops trainer. And this was my first real discernible hobby, kind of my entire life that wasn't just drinking or partying. And it was cool because I actually had something I could latch onto and kind of pour my time and energy into on the weekends. And yeah, I just loved it. Skydiving was definitely the big thing for me. Graduated SQT, you get your SEAL trident, you're officially SEAL at this point, and 99% of the guys when they graduate, they go straight to a team and they start the workup for a deployment that will be a year and a half later. I volunteered to go to medic training. The medic training that I went to is a year long. It's called Special Operations Combat Medic Course. It's actually the Green Beret medic training. They have the single best combat medical program on planet Earth. It's not even close. So all the branches send their operators to this program. It's about 10 months of schooling. It's about a year process for the move and everything. Less than 40% of people graduate. About 10% of people go through the school without getting rolled back because you failed something. It's just a super rigorous program. You graduate with your advanced tactical paramedic, and then you have your paramedic as a civilian qual underneath that. And it's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's a terrible place. It's really bad. Just not sick. All there is to do in Fayetteville is jump out of planes, and they've got a really great DZ there. Paraclete is a super cool spot if you're good at skydiving, and if not, there's nothing to do. So we went really deep down skydiving. I did several hundred jumps in the time I was there, and again, just kind of like further down that course a little bit more. And I love medicine. It was like really cool. It's this like consequential puzzle. I guess with like trauma specifically, this is gonna sound crass, but like, when there's something going on and it's like, okay, fix it or else. And it's just like, it was this really engaging way to use my head. And it was cool to do something that felt objectively good, like just giving back and just being able to help people. And I like the trauma aspect in terms of, it's like bad things happening to good people, kind of. It's like, people aren't oftentimes like responsible for these things that happen. They're just accidents. So yeah, I just really enjoyed the medicine. This is me doing my first appendectomy. This is a totally healthy appendix. It did not need to come out, but if you're not pulling out healthy appendixes, you're not doing enough appendectomies. So this was in Yemen. So this was not an American, but he was very healthy, made it, everything was good. So we actually did another one the next day after this. Graduated SOCM, the medic course, and I got a call from SEAL Team 3 a week before graduation, and they said, hey, we need medics in Iraq. Like yesterday, it was a very combat-heavy deployment, and they were taking a lot of casualties, and for a lot of different reasons, they needed medics like right away. So I drove to graduation with my U-Haul, packed, like, this is like the weirdest graduation of all time. You do it in a closed room, and it's just kind of an odd scenario, but got my little diploma over there, and then drove 32 hours straight to San Diego without stopping, and I was on a C-17 the next day, and 72 hours after graduation, I was sitting in Al-Qaim, or I guess I flew in Al-Assad, but sitting in Iraq. And they talk about this in school a lot, where they're like, some of you will be, the day after you graduate, you're gonna be in war. And I was like, okay. And here we are. So turns out they weren't lying. So this picture was taken at Al-Qaim. This was one of ISIS's last strongholds in Iraq. This is right on the border of Syria. This was at an old train station that we lived at for a while. I think this is outside Mosul. These are just some like random pictures from that deployment. This is a classic Iraq sandstorm kicking up. Everybody just runs inside and hides while it takes everything out. And this is my pet hedgehog that I got to keep at our train station for a while. He was an emotional support pet. I don't know if he had a name. I don't know. I actually don't remember. That's a good question. I should have known that.
Next slideshow.
Yeah, please. Got back from that deployment. That was super eye-opening for me. Obviously, the first time you leave the country is a big deal. The first time you go on a deployment is a big deal. And then you mix those two things, and it'll kind of change you a little bit. So I came back from the deployment and I didn't change anything. Went right back into drinking and jumping. That's all I was doing. Again, like no discernible direction, and I was just kind of like partying a lot, and I hated it. I was aware of what I was doing, and I hated it. And I just didn't want to be wasting my weekends at the bars and doing the same stuff, all the time. And it just felt like really unfulfilling at the time. So 2018, we had three, I think, prominent events in this that led to where we are today. The first one is, this was the first time I ever went to Yosemite. My buddy Nolan kind of threw out on a whim that he thought we could climb Half Dome. We didn't even know, we didn't know anything. Like we've never, we're not climbers. We didn't even know rock climbing existed at the time. But we left after work on Friday and drove like through the night We climbed Half Dome via the cables route the next day and then drove back the next night. This is a super cool picture. This was taken October 26th, 2018. And 6 years after that picture to the day, we stood on top of Half Dome after doing the quad, which is super cool. Because we had no idea how significant this was going to be at the time. And then the second thing we did, with kind of the same group, we did our first Mount Whitney hike. I threw up 1,000 times. I got sicker than I've ever been from altitude. I was like, man, this is pretty brutal. But the first time kind of seeing the High Sierra, and man, that'll change you quick. Really getting back in the High Sierra will change you as a person, and it stuck with me quite a lot. And then I met Han, my wonderful wife right here. We met in 2018. And the first thing that I wanted to do when I met her was bring her back to Yosemite, because I couldn't believe how unreal it was. It was just this incredible place already that was super important to me. So we went back on New Year's Eve, three months after I went there last time, and we climbed Half Dome again. It was all snowed out, so we didn't actually make it to the summit. We stopped here on Sub Dome. But it was this really special moment for both of us, and it kind of kicked off the cascade of Yosemite being this really important place for us. It's been a big catalyst in our relationship since day one, which is super cool. Shortly after that, I deployed again to the Arabian Peninsula. This is in Yemen with some Soviet antiques. I don't even know if these worked. I'm just sitting on it. I don't think they do. These are just, I think this is in Makola, Yemen. These are just some more random pictures from that deployment. This is the capital of Yemen, Aden. The presidential palace is right over the right. It's this really jarring juxtaposition between this lavish palace and then Aden. And this is all built in this was an old bunker from when the British invaded Yemen in the 1800s, and they still use the same bunkers today because they built them very well, I guess. How was that? And I always tell people when I came back, Yemen would be truly one of the most beautiful countries on planet Earth. They just got kind of a lot going on right now. But it really is where the mountain meets the sea. It's just absolutely stunning. And then right over these ridges are these really lush green rainforests. It's a really incredible place. This deployment, this is my buddy Michael Myers shooting his first rocket. One of our support guys. And shooting those rockets is terrible. You get a concussion every single time. You'll just get nosebleeds all day. It's not cool. So on this deployment, I picked up 2 emotional support dogs, deployment dogs, which is actually really common if anybody's ever deployed or heard of this. Dogs in the Middle East are like squirrels. They're just everywhere. They're all over the streets. They're everywhere. There's no population control of any kind. So we had all these dogs all over our little base where we were at in Yemen. These dogs, we had a tiny little airstrip to fly in and out on, and these dogs would not stop hanging out at the airstrips, and the locals would just shoot the dogs because they were causing a lot of air traffic safety hazards. It's very sad. This is why I brought them in, because I didn't want that to happen. So we had Mako and Blackbeard. This is me administering meds. They had 50 bot flies each, and they had all these terrible health problems, and I spent 2 months nursing these dogs back to health, and then they lived with me in my little room. So this is Blackbeard. He actually got shot in the eye. No neurological defects, which is super cool. But he was a stud, man. And then that's Mako. He slept under my bed. They were actually incredible dogs for being totally wild animals, which was great. Eventually, I actually got a nonprofit called Operation Baghdad Pup to fly them back to the States. And they're living on a farm up in Canada today. The farm is owned by one of our pilots, who was a Canadian at the time. He's a contractor that we were paying to fly us around. So they're just loving life. They're on this huge farm, running around. They don't worry about anything weird anymore. So love it. But after the dogs left, things started getting a little tough. I actually had a few slides in here that I ended up taking out because I didn't want to get too weirdly morbid in here. But this is a really challenging deployment for me. Mentally, I was struggling quite a lot. I was in a pretty bad spot. I was having trouble identifying with kind of this culture and community, and it was a tough scene. Ironically, we did not fire a single shot on this entire deployment. We were doing a tremendous amount of humanitarian work, and as the lead medic leading a lot of that stuff, it was just really, wearing me out because it's just kind of a heavy situation over there. So now without the dogs, I'm like kind of back on my own. So I'm talking to my younger brother. He's 4 years younger. His name's Tal. He was already big into climbing at the time, and I have intermittent Wi-Fi, and I can't even tell him like what's going on. I'm just like, hey, things are kind of bad, and we're roughly in this part of the world, and I can't really tell him what we're doing. And he said, hey, I'm going to put together this hard drive full of films. I'll mail it out to you if you can get it. I was like, yeah, send it out. So he put together this hard drive with climbing films on it, and mailed them out to Yemen. Took like 2.5 months to get there, but once they got out there, it coincided well because we all had cholera and we couldn't go out. So I was able to watch all these climbing films in just like a big bender, and I was freaking out. I was like, this is the coolest thing. And it was this super cliched story of like, I saw Free Solo and Dawn Wall, and like literally that's actually what happened. I was like, this is sick. So ended up coming back from that deployment with like this newfound excitement for, I want to try rock climbing. I think that sounds cool. But we still didn't really know anybody that climbed, and we kind of had a lot of questions about how to get started. This is coming back from that deployment. It's almost 7 months. Hannah was a huge part of that. I can't even imagine where I'd have been without her back home, keeping the spirits high. So right back when we get back to America, right back to Yosemite. Again, it's already this like really important place for us. This is a funny picture. I took this on November 6th, 2019, and I posted it on Instagram. I said, climbing El Cap. I had no idea what that meant. I'm obviously not even on a route here. There is somebody on the first pitch of South here. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I had no concept. I didn't even know there was routes. So like, you just start anywhere up and like, whatever. So these pictures are all really funny now, looking back. And then we went back and climbed Half Dome. We actually summited this time for the third time. But we went back with this big group, and it was I just wanted to show everybody. I'm like, you have to see this. This is an incredible place. We ended up finding we found a friend of a friend who rock climbed, and we got him to take us out to Joshua Tree. This is not an exaggeration. We took the mattress off of our bed at home, and we strapped it, sheets and everything, on top of the Jeep. Flew it like a kite down I-10 all the way to Joshua Tree. Unreal. And yeah, that was our first camping. We're not outdoorsy. We don't know what we're doing. Made sense to me. Whatever. Mattress fits the roof rack. So yeah, this is our first trip. We went out there, we did one pitch of 5-7, Faith Healer, first pitch ever, one pitch of 5-7 on top rope, and it like blew my mind, because before that you're looking up at the rocks, and I hate Joshua Tree climbing. I think it's terrible, but I know it's a hot take. I just think it's just a big pile of rocks. But like you look at it and you're like, how do you get the rope up there? Like, whatever. And then the second you climb your first pitch, it just opens up this new like vertical world of like what's possible. And it was just really enlightening experience for me. So much so that we immediately bought a van like the next week, because it seemed like that was a really important part of climbing. And we knew we were gonna do this, like immediately knew we were gonna do this forever. We were like, all right, let's just go all in. We bought a van and got rid of the Jeep. It was easier to put the mattress inside the car than on top. So yeah, we're like all into this outdoorsy lifestyle, and we know it's gonna be oriented around climbing. First year of climbing for me looked like this. I spent a ton of time at El Cajon Mountain. This was my home crag in San Diego. It's super hot in the summer, so a lot of like 3 a.m. starts to try to climb before it got too hot. Holcomb Valley and Alabama Hills. These are the three places I learned how to climb and kind of cut my teeth, I guess. These are all sport climbing places, but we put 55,000 miles on that van the first year we had it, because we drove one of these three places every single weekend, and generally it was to the Sierra, but one of these three places as often as we could possibly go. We were just psychotically obsessed with this lifestyle already, and it was way more fulfilling than what we had done. I also stopped drinking in 2019. I've been sober since then, and that was a big part of this, and it was trying to like fill that with something else, and it hasn't even been hard for me, because like I don't want to drink, I want to go climb, and I can't do both at a high level. So yeah, that's my thought. So I ended up getting adopted by Gabe Park. I don't know if anybody's ever met Gabe. He's the best, man. He's so cool. He was my trad dad. Taught me how to place cams and jam hands, and we did a lot of that at Mount Woodson on the ground, and then ended up going to Keats. And once we were climbing trad, Keats kind of became like the go-to spot, which is great because it mirrors Yosemite quite well. Kind of the same kind of rock and same kind of climbing. So this is my first trad lead on Traderhorn. I think the Traderhorn Coffin Nail Link Up is the single best moderate multi-pitch in America, for sure. And then we ended up doing open book the next day, which felt super serious for my second trad lead. Later that year, went to Tuolumne for the first time. This is like my first like trad lead, I think. It was Cathedral Peak, where I'm like not with, you know, a trad dad who's gonna like save me if I get scared. I brought Han up that, took like 8 hours. Which is funny because I climbed it in like 17 minutes a couple months ago. And then later that trip, I did my first solo in like giant air quotes on Tenaya, and it felt like a huge deal at the time. And Hannah hated it. She like she tried to talk me out of it, and then she cried on the lake on Tenaya Lake for like 2 hours while I was doing it. She expected to see my body just come like tumbling down Tenaya. You know, now it's obviously hilarious if you've done Tenaya. You know, it's like, you know, it's pretty chill. But at the time, it was this like, it's like I unlocked something. I just climbed 1,500 feet of granite in like 30 minutes, and it was just this crazy, like, holy crap, look what's possible. It was really another super enlightening experience for me, and something that ended up carrying on for quite a while. Later that year, I was gonna propose to Han. I did propose to Han, and I thought, no better place to do it than Yosemite. I hadn't actually climbed anything in the valley yet, but somebody recommended that we do Nutcracker and propose on top because Manure Pond Buttress is a big, nice platform above the valley. I was like, yeah, it's easy. It's 5'8", I can do that. I could not do that. This went about as bad as it could have gone without one of us like getting airlifted off. Like a colossal epic. I tried to link pitches that I couldn't link. I ran out of gear and rope at the same time, so I couldn't build anchors. And like Hannah's crying because she thinks we're gonna die, and she's like not unjustified in that. Like the wheels were totally off, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like we like maybe should have called for help at some point, but we did make it up there eventually. I actually have a video of this, but I don't think we have audio. So that's a video from when we topped out. I have the ring in my pocket. I was planning on proposing on top of this, and when she topped out like that, I said, maybe we don't want to make this a core memory. So I just kept the ring in my pocket and ended up like aggressively saying that we need to go hike up to Glacier Point after that. So we left at like 4 p.m., like way too late in the day. And she's like, why are we doing this? Like, we have to do this, like, because we're leaving the next day. And like, I have to propose. I'm like, what? I have to propose. Where am I going to do this? So we went up to Glacier Point for like a sunset hike. Did end up getting the red point on that. We got engaged up there. It was really nice. Much better than the first attempt. And then we ended up eloping in Moab, just on the side of the road a couple months later. I spent like $100 on my suit and just totally trashed it. Han's wedding dress came in like small, medium, and large. It was like, we didn't spend much money on the wedding. It was actually really nice. My brother officiated it. Him and I climbed Castleton Tower the morning of the wedding. And then after the wedding, Han and I climbed Ancient Art and just totally destroyed all the wedding clothes because you only need them once. So it was a super cool day. We literally we went and scouted out a spot in Castle Valley the day before. We dropped a pen. We said, meet here at 4. And that was it. We just showed up and had a quick little ceremony. We're still doing great. So, maybe the biggest part, not the biggest, sorry. Second biggest part of 2021. Michael Valen is the picture, who's my main partner. If you guys have been following the page at all, you know Mike, Big Mike. I was having a lot of trouble finding consistent climbing partners at the time. I really wanted these like really big days. I was like craving these big, significant experiences in the mountains. And a lot of people say they want that, but our ideas of big days were like two totally different things. And it resulted in some like burn partnerships where I'm like I just wanted to keep going and do more pitches and bigger days, and like a lot of people don't want that, which is completely fine. But I felt like I was being really limited by that. Obviously, climbing is a partner sport. So Mike sent me a message on Mountain Project. It was something deranged about how he wanted to climb until his fingers bled and then keep climbing or something. I was like, this guy's nuts. So so we met up in the Whitney Portal that weekend, which I think is like one of the most underrated climbing places in America. And we climbed the first day on a Saturday. We climbed Bony Fingers, and then 5 of the 8 pitches of No Country for Old Men. We had to aid climb through like 3 of those pitches because we convinced ourselves that holds had broken. They hadn't. It was just 5'10" Sierra slab, and we were like super scared. He actually stood on my shoulders for one pitch to like aid up to a bolt. Just absolutely embarrassing. And then the next day we climbed the Becky route, which is a super fun moderate there. But just like doing these 3 multi pitches in like a 24-hour period, like blew my mind again. I was like, holy crap. Because we were both always the person in the partnerships that was like always wanting to do one more pitch or like, keep staying out a little longer. And now we have no voice of reason to say no. So we're just kind of like egging each other on, and we're still doing that today. Second year of climbing, back at Holcomb, did my first 512. Incinerator, yeah. Felt like a huge deal at the time. I still get really happy when I send 512s. This is like a 3-bolt 512. It's just, if you can do like a couple pull-ups, you can do it. Han and I did Thunderbolt to Sill. It was a really great day. We actually did it in like 4 hours. It was pretty incredible. I spent a bunch of time in Tuolumne this year. Did some climbing in Joshua Tree, unfortunately, and Red Rocks. Spent a lot of time in the High Sierra. I went to Zion, and then ended up doing the Vampire on Tequeets, which felt like a big benchmark for me at the time. This is my second year of climbing, and I just sent my first 511 trad route, and it felt like I was like, I could actually start to look at real routes and have a fighting chance at least making it up. The end of the second year of climbing, Mike and I do our first El Cap lap. This is not in good style. There was this huge storm coming in at the end of the week, and we decided the night before, like at 7 p.m., we're just gonna go for it. We had two days of good weather, and then like this colossal storm that was gonna shut down the valley for a couple days. And our undeveloped brains led us to the decision that we will haul the whole route. That way, if we get caught in the storm, we can hunker down, but we're not gonna stop climbing at all. So we did it like Naiad style for our first time while hauling like 200 pounds of gear. I can't stress how bad of a decision that was. We probably would have just been done in like a reasonable amount of time if we didn't bring the bags. So we actually learned how to haul on the first pitch, both of us. We had no idea what we were doing. And then I learned how to aid climb on the Great Roof. That was my first aid pitch, 20 pitches up. And it only took an hour and a half, which is actually not that bad if you've been up there. And then we had the colossal stove situation. I just love this story. I'm just gonna tell this one more time. We climbed, we left the ground around 7 a.m. on the first day. We got to El Cap, is it El Cap Ledge? Is that above Dope?
Fire? Tower?
No, El Cap Tower? Yeah, El Cap Tower, like the Good Bibby Ledge? Yeah, we got up there, it's like pitch 12 or 13 or something at like midnight. She was like 12 pitches up. And I was violently ill. I was like overexerted. We didn't stop to eat or drink the entire day. I was just dry heaving up there, and then it started to rain. So we said, hey, let's hang out on El Cap Tower until the rain stops. So we popped open the fly and just like got mummied up and laid there for like 2 hours until I could like keep water down basically. And then we got up and started climbing again. And we knew we weren't gonna stop until we hit the summit because the storm was like impending coming in. So we climbed through the night the first night, and then we're climbing through the night in the second night now, and things are getting weird, and we don't know what we're doing. And the wheels are starting to fall off like pretty badly at like Camp 5. We just hadn't eaten yet. We like still had not stopped to do anything, but we're hauling like 5 days of food and water. So we start talking about taking a break up at Camp 6 to do a big refuel. So we're saying when we get up there, we're gonna bust open the haul bags. We're gonna eat like 2 or 3 mountain houses each. We're gonna make coffee. We're gonna eat candy. Like just a complete gluttonous smorgasbord. It's all weird. So we're like screaming back and forth, like, I'm gonna make chicken Alfredo and pesto tortellini, like drooling. We're like screaming up and down from the Blair about, and I mean, we're singing. We're like just jolly at the idea of the fact that we're about to have this food. So we get up to Camp 6. The only thing that's keeping us going is the fact that we're about to have this meal. We get up to Camp 6 and we pull the haul bags up and we lay all the food out in this big display to like pick what we want. And Mike sets up the stove. We've got a reactor stove up there, and we start boiling water to get our meals going. And I am cloved into the wall, and my clove is on like a 20-foot leash or something. And I was like, that seems unsafe. So I just say, hey, I'm gonna get up to just shorten my leash up. So I stand up on Camp 6 and I shorten my clove up. And then when I step back, I just go dink. And I punted the stove off of Camp 6 just to the edge of the ledge. And if you've been up there, it's very sloping. And my first instinct was, I'm gonna dive off this ledge because the stove is way more important than whatever safety considerations are at play here. And I didn't catch it in time. And we listened to this stove clink down the nose of El Cap for like 90 seconds. Just so long. And along with it, a gallon of our water. And we didn't say a word. We looked at each other and without saying a single word, silently packed our entire camp up. Mike got back on the sharp end and I put him on belay, he started climbing. We never talked about it. It was, I don't think we could talk about it. It was like one of the lowest points I've ever had in the outdoors. I just wanted to cry. It was unbelievably devastating because of how high the high was going into that. So we never ate, we never got any food, and we just kept climbing. We ended up topping out several hours later. The 51-hour Naiad. I had a very long day. The first one, this is us before, then after, getting our cafeteria chicken tenders. And then the rest of that year, we ended up doing Astroman for the first time. So we're starting to do like actual valley routes now that felt like a big deal for us. We did what we thought was going to be like a big original link up where we did all 5 open books. And it ended up taking like 4 hours. We were like at the cafeteria by lunch, and we were like, all right, that was cool. But we're starting to like think a little bit creatively now and try to put bigger stuff together and just kind of push ourselves a little bit more. 2022 starts. This is like the 3rd year of my climbing beginning. I did mostly all my climbing at El Cajon Mountain again. I got picked up by this really cool group of guys. They call themselves the Mean Gang. They're the nicest guys in the world. It's like Randy Levitt, Gary Anderson, Monty Swan, Drew Aldridge. These like incredible guys that have become really, really important mentors for me, both climbing and like personally. They've just been really important guys for me. Again, I haven't had a lot of like strong male figures in my life, and these are the guys I still call today when I need like advice or help on anything. I still talk to him all the time. This is Monty Swan. He's, I don't know, 76 now or something. He's still climbing 5'11" in his approach shoes. Just absolutely insane. I started moving through Randy's routes at El Cajon Mountain quite a lot this year, and I was doing a bunch of his 512s at El Cajon and getting pretty close to Randy, and he's been a big mentor of mine as well. And then they taught me how to develop, how to clean routes and bolt routes and hammer pitons and all sorts of stuff. So I got to do a couple FAs of my own back at El Cajon Mountain. First route ever, slippery slope. It's a cool 11C up there. I called it slippery slope because I thought it was going to be a slippery slope that once you start developing, that's all you want to do. And I haven't done anything since then. So, but sometimes it's just more fun to go climb. That summer, I was closing out my time in the Navy, and I did this program called Skill Bridge. So you do, for your last 6 months of active duty service, you can go work a civilian job, and it's supposed to be this bridge program and transition into the civilian side. I got a really cool spot at the Telluride Adaptive Sports Program, and the idea was I was going to take all the lessons I learned at this nonprofit and bring them back to my nonprofit and, hopefully further us in some way. This is such a cool program. It's all adaptive sports, like genuinely adaptive sports. Amputees or like developmentally disabled people and stuff like that. So we got to live in Telluride for 4 months, April to August. And it was a really cool experience for us to kind of get out of California and see something new. We hadn't really left California in our climbing career up to that point, so this the first time leaving the state and experiencing different rock and bad rock and stuff like that. And the San Juans is only bad rock. This is on top of Needle Rock. This is over the town of Telluride. If you've been there, you'll see it's just this little spire up on the hill. They used to have a pirate flag up there, but it was just like tatters when I went up. So I replaced it with the real pirate flag, which I don't know, it might still be there today, I have no idea. The route is horrific to get up there. It's a rated R, 9+, it's a terrible time. But this whole summer, we were climbing in. I did a lot of climbing in Ophir in the black, and then a bunch of alpine stuff in the San Juans, so kind of trending more toward the alpine stuff. That whole summer, it's like all I was doing was alpine climbing. I was totally in. Hannah and I did the full XM on the Grand. I did the Telluride Traverse. I think I did the second ascent of that. If you follow the page, you might know about that. That was a bad day. And then this is just a picture. I soloed the North Red of Bear Creek Spire that summer. Just like more time in the alpine and kind of trending toward that being the big direction, which ultimately led to the first. I feel like this was the first big thing that I ever did that I felt like I was really proud of. Was the Evolution Traverse. I ended up doing it solo on site in a day. I actually did it in like 13 hours. It felt like a huge deal for me at the time because it's an enormous day. You know, I would be happy to do it tomorrow in this time. Much less a couple years ago when I was less experienced. But it was another one of those days that I had, and it just felt like it was so empowering to do something like that, and just kind of look at it and be like, damn, like look what we can do if you're just willing to like hurt a little bit. And it was just really, again, another like empowering experience for me to get out in the mountains and push myself. This is also the first big day I had by myself in the mountains, which has kind of become a standard for me a little bit. I really enjoy the mental aspect of being out there alone. It gets weird and hard, but you learn a lot about yourself like every single time, and it's pretty cool. These are a couple of videos. The first one's super dramatic. You'll hear the audio from that. This is on the Evolution Traverse. It started like this typical Sierra squall, man. I got smoked in this thing. I ended up hiding under a rock for like 30 minutes. It just was like hailing sideways. This is like just another video of that. I'm going in, this is the last peak right here. It's got like some 5.7, 5.8 climbing up on this like 1,000-foot head wall. And I'm in approach shoes and it's like raining sideways and, but I'm like, I have one more peak left. Like, we're not gonna stop. Like, I need to go at least try it. And then this is the last video. This is me on the finish and it's kind of cool. This shows like the entire Evolution Traverse like in its entirety here. It's a pretty big ridgeline, and it was a pretty big day. It just kind of keeps going. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of elevation change. But again, like this was, if nothing else, this was just like really empowering for me to be able to do that and see what's possible to go out there and do by yourself. Fall 2022, Mike and I have linked up. We're officially best buds and climbing partners at this point. This is our first full valley season. I'm kind of checked out of the Navy at this point. This season we did our first big wall in a day. We just did this like on site. Neither of us had done the face of Half Dome. We ended up doing it in like 9 hours car to car. It was a really cool experience for us. Again, all of these are like empowering, exciting, eye-opening experiences where we're just like, we're just gonna keep trying stuff until we hit a wall, and like we're not hitting a wall yet, so let's keep going bigger. We climbed a couple of harder free routes that year, Wayward Sun, Rhino, and Warbird. So we're starting to climb like, again, real valley, like free wall routes and stuff. It felt like a big deal at the time. It still would today. We did Free Rider that fall. Neither of us sent the boulder problem. Didn't even get close, but we sent everything else, and it was a really cool experience to get up there. And we spent a week on the wall. We just went super heavy, and Mike kept saying we're just going cragging on El Cap, and that's really what it felt like. We were just cragging. Having fun, just cranking pitches. So this is Alex. The enduro corner on that same trip. This was one of our bivvies at Round Table. I kept telling Mike I was gonna charge him with stolen valor. He bought an Army ACU top to climb the monster off with in, and it actually worked perfectly because he just completely destroyed it, and he got it's this like big tough shirt. But yeah, that was a cool trip for us, and we learned a lot of lessons on that trip, like how not to fix dynamic ropes. Stuff that'll stick with you for a while. Ended up getting out of the Navy. December of 2022 was my EAS, December 1st. and immediately left like a couple weeks later, went straight to Patagonia. This was a big, Patagonia's kind of been in my mind for a couple years. I felt like I had to get down there. I was just psychotically obsessed with this place. This film, Mountain of Storms, I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of an old school Patagonia film, and I've seen it like 50 times. You know, it just seemed like the promised land, you know, or I guess the international promised land after Yosemite. So I went down there without a partner. We didn't get anything like huge done that trip. We got a couple cool summits and got to do some cool climbing in the range. More than anything, it just planted the seed that I was I knew I was gonna be coming back here time and time again, and I was there this past season again for another month, and it's such a special place. It's really incredible. Spring 2023 kicks off day one. Our big goal for the spring is the Yosemite Double. We thought the Croftbacker pioneered Yosemite Double was like the absolute pinnacle that anybody's ever done in history. It was like the coolest thing that's ever happened in the valley, and we were gonna do the double, and then we would be officially like valley climbers. We hadn't even done our first night at this point. We actually had not climbed the nose since our first 51-hour fiasco, but we were already planning on the double because we were just feeling cocky, I guess. I don't know. This was day 3 of that season. I completely blew my ankle out. I had a grade 3 ATFL rupture, a bunch of grade 2s in my other ligaments. I was in a cast for a couple months, not cast, a boot. Tough season, man. It was a bad day, and I will tell you about the day here. This is gonna be crass. So this was a significant day for us. Our goal on this day was to link up Voyager and Center of the Universe, which really wouldn't have been a particularly big day for us at the time. So we climbed Voyager in the morning, and I was bragging to Mike like nonstop about my new diet and how it was all beef and I was invincible. And I was recovering so well that I could do anything I wanted, and I could climb harder than I've ever climbed before. And Mike kept saying, "Shouldn't you put some greens into that diet?" And I said, "No, Mike, I've got beef, I'm fine." On this climb, you'll see here, this is the incinerator crack. With weight training, I shit my pants an incredible amount. I filled my pants up on this climb and sent Voyager in that state. And if you would have told me that that was not going to be the worst thing that happened that day, I would not have believed you, but it was not even close to the worst thing that happened that day. So, did this in the state of things. We did Voyager, came back down, and Mike and I, we were sobbing laughing, like hysterically crying laughing at the situation. It was just like an unbelievable situation. We come back down, and if you're familiar with the topography of the Fifi Buttress area, Voyager starts kind of up on a shelf, like up here, and then Center of the Universe starts down here. And you can either, from here, you can walk all the way around to the base, or you can walk 50 feet left and rappel the first 4 pitches of Center of the Universe. So we got down to the bottom of Voyager. I went over to the waterfall, took a quick shower, and cleaned my pants out. And we came over to Center of the Universe, and we went into the wrap anchor, which is just out of picture up here. And we were simul-wrapping. We were going to simul-wrap the first 4 pitches just to start from the ground up. And we loaded our gree-grees and we walked back, and as we walked to the edge, the entire ledge under us just collapsed, and we're literally just like free hanging, 500 feet off the ground at that point, kind of confused at what's happening. Because it's kind of disorienting when like the ground falls away under you, and it takes a minute to figure out like what's actually happening. You're like, why am I unstable right now? So we were the first ones to climb it this season, and it was after this historically heavy winter. And there was just a crazy amount of erosion, and all this sediment had washed away, and it took this entire ledge out. And realistically, looking back, if we had climbed from the ground up, there's no universe where we wouldn't have died. I just don't even think it's possible, because the second that whoever was getting up the ledge, they would have grabbed it and pulled it onto themselves. I just don't see any way how that wouldn't have happened. I'm like totally sure, it was this crazy luck or divine intervention or something that we happened to be lazy and wanted to repel. So this is a picture from that. I actually was able to pin this rock against the wall with my body, and then Mike, we were simul-wrapping, so he tied off his end, and then we started slinging boulders because we didn't know if anybody was below us. It's like a trade route. It's a beautiful spring day. So Mike went down there, and we ended up clearing it, making sure it was good, and then we sent the rest of this ledge down. But there was still a lot of unstable rock up there. So we obviously didn't climb Center of the Universe that day. We ended up hiking out, and on the hike out, I've had these chronic ankle instability problems for a couple years now. I just keep rolling this ankle over and over and over. I'm supposed to get surgery. I just haven't gotten it yet. And the second that I pulled my phone out to text Dan McDevitt and say, hey, you need to red tag this route, or like get a ranger out here to like, you know, we need to fix this route like today because this is a serious safety hazard. I took my eyes off my feet and just folded the ankle clean in half, and that was the picture. That was this picture right here, which was later in that day. So that's why you always stare at your feet while you walk. It's a good lesson. A couple months later, Hannah and I ended up doing our Navy retirement travel. It was kind of a really challenging prospect to travel internationally at the time when I was in the SEAL teams, just because like stuff to do with your clearance, it's like an act of God to leave the country. It's just not even worth the trouble. So now we can finally go internationally. So we had this big trip planned. We went to Mallorca, did a bunch of climbing. We spent a couple weeks in Chamonix, got to do some climbing on the Midi in the Alps. We did the TMB. I actually linked up with Vitaly Musinko for the first time on this trip. We happened to be there at the same time. We did Mount Blanc in a day from town, without using any lifts, which at the time, again, felt like the new biggest thing I had ever done. It was an enormous day. We started at like 10 p.m. at night and just hiked all through the night. And it was awesome. It's like, it was cool this is the new highest point I had ever been at 15.7. And again, it just felt like we were marginally pushing that new best a little bit at a time. And then Vitaly, I looked up to him like just a demigod. I still do, and he's one of my best friends today. We're like really, really close. Talk to him on the phone every couple of days. But I just think he is like one of the most accomplished climbers and alpinists like in history. He's an incredible guy. And this was kind of where that kicked off. And I felt a lot of pressure to perform on this day because he was already really established, and I was this like random nobody. And I really knew that I was gonna like totally blow my opportunity to have a relationship with him if I looked like an idiot out here. So we pushed really hard and had a good day and got a good summit in. So on top of the Alps. Later that trip, went to Kalymnos, Miran, and Milan. Came home, was super antsy, did a lot of cragging on that trip. Was really excited to get back into the Alpine again. Needed to put the legs to work. So we got right back into the Alpine and did a couple of traverses and link ups. And then I had this cool idea. I'd been kind of thinking about it over the summer of doing these big 3 traverses of the Grand Traverse, the Cirque of the Towers Traverse, and the Whirl, all car to car in a day and all in the same week. I was like, that would be sick. That'd be a good week. So Vitaly and I did the Grand Traverse. We did this is the Grand Traverse. It's every summit in the Teton skyline. You go up Tiwanaut and then over to this side and then down. It was such a good day. This was us at the finish of that, and then kind of the same video. We did it. Same video, kind of just like shows the whole process. That's Tiwanaut way on the far side, and we just summited every single one of these peaks on the way through. I think we did it in like 19 hours car to car, but we ended up we took a bath in the river for like an hour, and like took a nap at one point. It was kind of like not a crazy day. But it was a really gratifying day with Vitaly, and again, we're just kind of like pushing this partnership a little bit more at a time. I drove to the Wind River Range the next day, and then the following day did the Cirque of the Towers Traverse solo by myself. This is all on site as well. I had a really close call that day. I've kind of talked about this a bunch. I won't go into a bunch of detail, but I had a rappel anchor break on me on this day that would, if I had relied on that anchor, I would have fallen 1,000 feet and died. This was the first really close call I had that was like user error, because I should have tested it a little more thoroughly, and I still think about this all the time. This was I feel like this was the one that I got away with. Like this was my silver bullet. And it would be hard to exaggerate how close of a call this was, because I was hanging on this anchor for a while. And then it broke after I decided to test it, after I was already hanging on it. So just a big lesson learned that day, but this is all things considered one of my favorite days I've ever had in the mountains to this day. This is the last pic. I take pictures on summits to have timestamps so I know my pace for the day. This is the last picture I took right before that anchor broke. This was 10 minutes before that. Very happy to be there, and then kind of a jarring next situation.
We did it again.
And then, same thing. I just love these visuals. I think it's so cool. And then this is the Cirque of the Towers traverse. It's every summit in the Cirque of the Towers, which I think the Cirque of the Towers is one of the only places I've ever been that gives the Sierra like not a run for its money, but like it looks like the Sierra. It's an incredible place. Came home, went straight for the whirl, bailed halfway through. I'm not going back for it. I hate it. It's almost entirely just walking. There's like no technical climbing on it, and that just doesn't interest me a lot. So I didn't really want to do that. And but I was happy with this whole triad and how it went and stuff. And I'm good on the half whirl. I had Koros reach out to me right after this, which felt like the biggest deal on planet Earth. It's like I had a brand reach out to me to like, sponsor me. They gave me some watches and like that was it. And it felt like an enormous deal at the time. And that's the first like sponsor I've ever had. I'm all in with them today. They've been an incredible support system for me from the very beginning here. But this was felt like a really big deal for me. Fall 2023, the Redemption Tour. We went right into the valley, did our first Naiad, did it 9:57, just under 10 hours. And this was like the day that the entire world shrunk. This was probably the most significant day in my entire climbing career, because you do your first Naiad and like every wall in the world shrinks to like a third of its size. There's no more big walls. It's all just multi-pitches. And it was just like insane revelation of like you looking around the valley and everything was so intimidating, and then you climb El Cap and you're up there at noon and you're like, oh man, like we could do anything. It was incredible. It was just such a cool experience. The next week we did the double, went right into that. We cut 2.5 hours off our nose time. We did half dome in 5:15, the double in 16:50, plenty of time to spare. Our only goal there was to beat Backer and Croft's time of 21 hours, and we did. So that winter I got really big into ice climbing with Vitaly. He was like my mentor for ice climbing. This is on Winter Dance. I don't know if you've seen it. It's up in Highlight. It's like one of the most aesthetic ice climbs I've ever seen in my entire life. It was a really cool experience. A really scary experience too, but we got it done and nobody got hurt, so that was good. I got picked up for the Maxim team beginning of 2024. This was, I would say, exclusively from Randy. Randy was the team captain at Maxim, and he kind of brought me onto that. Again, big mentor. He's a big influence in my climbing and personal life. And then Hannah and I were back on the road full time. We moved back into the van. We were just not ready to give it up. We had a house for like 10 minutes and said, this isn't for us at the moment. We got more to do. So we're back in the van, back on the road full time. Just some highlights from the beginning of this year. We did the Red Rock Triple this year in 12:35. That's Levitation, Cloud Tower, and Rainbow Wall. We had a cool day doing that. Like 2 days later, Vitaly and I did the rim to rim to rim. This was the only run I logged the entire year of 2024. I hate running, but this was a really cool day and a cool proof of concept that if you just like move a lot in the mountains, you kind of keep yourself at like baseline fitness level where you can do stuff like this. We had a very short spring season because we ended up getting a trip booked to Denali with Vitaly and George Panansby. So really short season. We were able to do the Salathé for the first time. We'd obviously done Freerider, but this is the first time doing the Salathé or like speed climbing the Salathé. We did that in like 10 hours or something. It was on site for both of us. We did a couple of Naiads. I got to bring one of my old mentors up the nose for his first time at 58. He's a big life goal of his to do, and I said, brother, we're not getting any younger, come on out. So I brought him up the nose. It was a really special day for both of us. Did some bouldering, which is the lowest form of climbing, and shortly after that, went to Denali with Vitaly and George Panansby. We went there. I'm not going to spray about what our goals were going to be, but we had some lofty ambitions when we went there. We did not end up getting the weather window to do anything significant. We spent almost a month sitting in our tents, watching the same 3 films over and over. This is me on the way up to 14 camp maybe, or 11. I don't know what camp this is. Pulling a heavy sled. This is what Denali looks like most of the time. A lot of leg work and labor, but a beautiful place. This is our snow cave. A lot of downtime there. We built a really cool snow cave. We hung an iPad up there and again watched the same 3 movies for almost a month straight. A lot of eating and laying around and getting fat and lazy. So I was kind of struggling with this trip a little bit. I thought I was going to hit the greater ranges and just be like totally obsessed and like, this is my new playground. And it was kind of the opposite, because all I was thinking about was how much climbing I could be doing in the Sierra while I'm sitting in this cave. And it was driving me nuts. So this is George coming across the Autobahn. All these pictures are from Vitaly, he's an incredible photographer. George coming across the Autobahn on the way up to, this is our summit day for the first time. This is us on the summit of Denali, 20,300 feet. Vitaly in the middle and then George on the left. And then Vitaly and I, 2 days later, went and did the North Summit, which was this really cool experience. I don't know if anybody's ever read the article Hypoxic Dreams by Vic Zielman. It was in the climbing scene a couple years ago. That is like my single favorite piece of writing I've ever read in my entire life. I've probably read it 50 times now. It's about his experience on the North Summit, and he kind of talks about the North Summit being the true soul of Denali, and all the power and kind of energy of Denali residing in the North Summit. And it got me just completely obsessed with getting there and experiencing that. And we did have an experience like that, and I haven't shared that publicly, and I think I will at some point, but it was like a pretty incredible experience for both of us. But this is Vitaly up on the top getting a shot. This is the it's the Washerburn Wall. This is the highest. This is the tallest contiguous wall in the Western Hemisphere of the world. It's like over 3 miles of rise straight from the ocean, like unobstructed up to the North Summit. It's incredible. It's pretty cool to be up there. And then ended up meeting a bunch of SEALs up there at the same time. They were doing their senior mountaineering course. They bring up a bunch of guys up to go on Denali every year to like as their big test out. They go do like mock guiding and stuff, but they all got to summit as well. But it was cool seeing the guys from the SEAL community, that are still active duty now that I'm on the other side. This is Josh Jesperson. He's a former SEAL. He's an IFMGA guide. Lives out of Silverton. He's an awesome guy. He was guiding that trip. And then a couple other guys from the organization. Got back from this trip, straight back to Yosemite, straight back to the Sierra. I did this cool day, the day of a dozen domes. I got to solo 12 routes on 12 different domes. All of them were 12 new routes for me. They were all like technical, actual climbing routes. It was a really cool experience. Routes I probably wouldn't have done by myself because I'm not at a place where I'm going to go like make a day out of a 5.8 or something. But when you put 12 of those together, it's a great day. And then 2 days later, I did the Grand Slam. I genuinely thought I had come up with this idea on my own, and of course I didn't. It already existed, and of course Vitaly had the FKT on this. And I found all this out the night before. That's the both of the Tuolumne triples, the Alpine triple, the Kness North Peak West Ridge link up, and the Tuolumne Triple Crown linked up together. So I just beat him on the FKT by 5 minutes on that, and it was a really cool day. I was like running for my life from Cathedral Peak because I knew it was going to be close. Barely pulled it out. So that was cool. And then this is kind of, well, I'm almost done here, I promise. This is 2024 fall. This was kind of the culmination of my whole climbing career was this last season. I hope not the peak in the looking back, but this was definitely the highlight of my whole climbing career. So our season was broken up into two seasons, kind of the Tuolumne season and then the Valley season, just based on temps. We got there, I think it's beginning of September. Obviously the Valley was still pretty hot at that point, so we just went crazy in Tuolumne. This is on Shipoopi. We did nearly every route I've ever wanted to do in my entire life in Tuolumne during this season. Every single day we were doing 1 or 2 multi-pitch routes, and it felt incredible. Once you get really dialed in the Valley or in Tuolumne on knobs and stuff, and you just feel like you're like really climbing well. It's just an unbelievably good feeling. And all these routes that just felt previously so intimidating and way long-term goals, like Acapulco Gold's 12 CR, we're not climbing that, and we got all this stuff done this season. It was just such an incredible experience, and this was all ramping up to this goal that we had in the back of our minds, but we didn't really know if it was going to be a possibility or not because it seemed kind of too far out there, which was the Back Urian. I will say confidently, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we're the weakest climbers in history to ever climb the Back Urian. I don't even think it's close. Neither of us have ever climbed a 513. I haven't even tried a 513. And most people that climb this have an enormous buffer of like they're climbing 514 or something, and they're not going to fall in 511. We don't have that buffer. We're like 511 is still hard for us. So we ended up ramping up to this, and And it was this really, really cool experience for both of us as a partnership, individually and as partners, because we both knew we were going into something that was like objectively a pretty serious situation, and we really needed to lean in on each other and kind of rely on having the self-awareness to know, like, hey, do you have this or do you not? Like, I can't go up there and hold your hand for this. I can't help you once you're 50 feet above your bolt. I can't do anything for you. Either you ascend or you're not. And it was just such a cool experience to share with Mike. I felt like this was a really prominent moment in our friendship and then our partnership as well. A big like ultimate trust exercise. So we did the BY. We didn't die. We didn't fall. We had a great experience. This is us on top. Just happy to be intact. And then we got our Tioga Mobile steak dinners after, as one does after you climb the BY. Nothing like a $40 gas station steak. After the temps dropped a little bit, we hit the valley for the season. Our big goal for the season was the triple. That's all we cared about was the Triple Crown. We did the double last season. The triple was next. We didn't even discuss it. That was just like an obvious progression that we were going to do. We kicked off the speed climbing circuit with this cool link up of the Twin Towers. We did the Leaning Tower and Washington Column in a day. Neither of us had done either of those routes before, so they were both fully on site. And that was a really cool day. It was so much fun. We did Leaning Tower in the morning. We actually went swimming in the river and took like a 3-hour nap in the afternoon until the column went in the shade. And then we did Washington Column in the afternoon. Chad Silva got this cool picture on the right as we were blowing through him on the coral roof. I ended up descending that in the dark. Man, that's the worst descent in the valley. I cannot believe that's the actual descent. It's unbelievably bad. It's just not safe. It's terrible. So now we're officially ramping up for the triple. We did our first Naiad of the season in 7:15, which was technically like about our best time for the Naiad at that point, but it felt really, really bad, really sloppy. My block was like 4:20 or 4:30 or something. Mike took like a ton of time off of his, but I blew a cam on the second or third pitch going up to Sickle and took like a huge ride. You shouldn't take fall speed climbing. That's like probably the first rule. You shouldn't fall. And I just did a hasty cam placement and I changed the angle of it as I stood up. And next thing I knew, it was like it was pitched. It was 3 a.m. or something. So I'm in the dark, and I don't even know how far I'm falling. I'm just like windmilling, like, oh my god, I hope I'm tied in. Like, this is crazy. And that really kind of was a jarring experience for me, and I just was struggling to climb confidently. So the next day, Mike and I went up and we just did a dolt run. I just asked Mike, like, hey, can you come just belay me? I just want to do a free dolt run and like I just want to spend the day like free climbing all these pitches. And ironically, this was the first time I had ever seen these pitches in the daylight, because we always start at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And just seeing all these pitches in the daylight kind of changed the perspective on a lot of this for me. We ended up doing the next. We ended up doing a Naiad again the next day. We were just like day after day after day, and we did our next one in 5 hours flat. So we cut 2 hours off of our PR just after this like single tune-up. We would have gone under 5, but Mike wanted to work on the stuck cam for like 20 minutes, and he didn't get it, and we didn't break 5. So nobody wins. So we did two L cap laps to ramp up for the triple. We did one single lap on Half Dome at 3:45. We both said that's fine. This is the rack that we ended up using for that. A lot of fixed gear, so a lot of quick draws. I don't want to go much faster than 3:45 because things start getting weird and maybe a little bit unsafe. This is the best pitch on Half Dome. It's not even close. It's an amazing crack. And then we did one lap on Watkins. Watkins was hotter than hell. It is just a solar panel that catches all the sun that the valley could ever create, and it just absorbs all of it and turns it into a molten shield of lava. So we were starting this at night. The first Watkins lap we ever did, we did in 5:35, which wouldn't have been a good time to go into the triple with if we knew we were going to recreate that. But this is a route that, knowing the route, just doing it one time will be a dramatically different experience the second time. Just because there's a lot of like weird route finding logistics and lower outs and stuff like that. So the second time we did Watkins in 2:52. Took quite a lot of time off of that. We did the nose in 5:25, and we did the face Half Dome in 3:30. So this is for the actual Triple Crown itself. A lot of people here, we're up there for that. It was really cool, like big community effort. And we ended up doing the triple in 17:55, which is technically the fastest time that's been done. That got a lot of publicity. We got all these headlines for like beating Honnold's speed record. The triple's not a speed record. It's never been a speed record. I don't think people are competing for like the triple speed record. It's kind of just for completion, so that's fine, but like that wasn't the goal. The goal of this was to see how much we can climb in 24 hours. That was the whole objective of this, is we want to fill a day with however much climbing we can. And look at all this time we have left over, 6 hours. We obviously didn't fill the time. We had been talking about, we've been talking about doing the quad previously, and we decided that the triple was more important, like getting the triple done definitively was more important than going for the quad. So we decided to go for that first. At 5:30 in the morning after the triple, we're texting in our vans saying, damn, we should have done the quad. Like, look how much time we had left over. Yeah, this is a screenshot from that. And yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning, we like a couple hours of sleep after the triple. We're already planning on going back and doing it again the next week. I actually said this to Danford. He said something about the triple, like good job. And I was like, yeah, it was such a good day. We're gonna do it again next week, and we're gonna add another wall. And he just laughed at me, and he thought that he just didn't even cross his mind that I was being serious. But we were. So we went back to our picnic table. We spent hours and hours and hours sitting at this picnic table at Church Bowl. We talked through every single pitch of every single route. We talked through moves and sequences and which bolts to clip and not clip and which exactly pieces of gear I can leave and not leave. And we had all of these pitches dialed. I just think that's the coolest thing. Like, we got so into the weeds on how to shave a minute here and 30 seconds here. And like, we even went down to like, if we switch out a carabiner for a key lock, we can slide a loaded clove off the end, and that'll save 10 seconds per pitch times 30 times 3 walls. And like, this is literally how we did it. And we're not, speed climbing isn't necessarily you like doing crazy stuff like all jittery fast. It's about efficiency and logistics, and I feel like we're really good at that, and we really enjoyed getting into the weeds and figuring out how to really dial stuff like that. And yeah, this is us heading off to Watkins on the day of the quad, the last supper beforehand. We started at 4 p.m. on Saturday for both of them, exactly a week apart. We did 4 p.m. Saturday for the triple, and then 4 p.m. Saturday for the quad. It was just easy math for us to be able to look at our watch and not like do crunch numbers. And that's when Watkins went into the shade, so that was basically the most important part for us. This is me heading up pitch 5 or ish of Watkins. It's a really incredible climb. I don't think it gets done that much because it's kind of off the valley floor a little bit, but it's an amazing climb. I highly recommend it. And this is the turnover at Red Feather Ledge. I take the first block up to Red Feather, which is the first 11 pitches, and then Mike takes the next 11 pitches to the summit. I was 119 up to this ledge. I didn't realize we actually missed the overall speed record held by Honnold by like 4 minutes this day. We shaved another 30 minutes off. We ended up doing Watkins in 2:32 this day, and that's when we knew we were cooking for the quad, because we were really feeling the triple quite a lot on the quad when we started. Just systemically, we were really fatigued and still kind of feeling it in our legs. But as soon as we fired the 2:30 Watkins, we knew we were in it for the long haul that day. So we did 2:32 and then 5:20 on the nose that night. Climbed through the night. Ended up shoving Washington Column in between El Cap and Half Dome to make the 4th. We did Washington Column in 2:15. This is actually the second time we had done the column. The first time we did it was in the Twin Tower link up like a month prior, and we just were like, yeah, it's probably fine. We'll just remember what we did, I guess. And yeah, it worked out great. We ended up doing well in the column. This is definitely the low point on the column. The wheels were kind of coming off in a bad way. We were just totally worked. And it's kind of burly climbing up on the upper half. It's just a little bit physical. And we were really feeling it. And Mike started to get into the pain cave a little bit. So we had to have some emotional support. And then yeah, Half Dome. We actually did our best time ever on Half Dome that day, 3:15. And this is me topping out to do the first quad. And yeah, first quad ever, 2150. Such a good day of climbing. Like a whole season of climbing.
Yeah, buddy! Booyah!
just a good day of climbing, whole season in a day. So really cool to be able to like incrementally push the sport, even if it's like a millimeter as a couple of nobodies. It just felt like a cool way to contribute to the valley climbing scene and like give back or like open a door that somebody else can walk through later and, you know, maybe revitalize this idea that there's still plums to be picked in the valley, because there is, if you're willing to look for them. This is our celebration after. We ate a bunch of pizza and went to bed at like 3 p.m. We were in bad shape. But yeah, it was cool. This is like this whole table right here is like in this picture is the coolest thing. We had this industrial support team on the quad. It was an absolute like legitimate community effort. Everybody had a role, and it was just incredible. It was like this symphony, like coming together all on this day, where everybody had a job to do and everybody did their job perfectly. And if anybody would have like missed, I mean, we had people like having food ready and cars staged, and people hiked with us up to Half Dome and they helped stage gear. And like if anybody had not done their role, the whole thing probably would have come crashing down. But everybody was so stoked, and it was like I cried on top of Half Dome for the first time in like 15 years. Just that like the show of support from our friends and stuff was, I've never experienced anything like it. It was cool to have something to rally around as like a group of people. And this isn't work, we're not forced to do this. This is just something that like we want to do and we love. And it was cool to have a shared interest enough to have people hiking, you know, to the top of Half Dome. Like that's a big hike. A lot of our friends climbed Snake Dyke that day to meet us on top, and man, I'll never forget that day. It was just such a special day. Not because the quad, but because like the people and like just the cohesive like action that went into this whole process was just absolutely incredible. Yeah, I can't say good enough things about this whole crew. So this is us on top. And then yeah, after the valley season, November 2024, we moved to Christmas Valley, right down the road here. Bought ourselves a real fixer-upper. We've got a couple of mice roommates right now that we're trying to figure out how many. And yeah, we're in a cute little A-frame down in Christmas Valley, just trying to stay out of the snow. And just since then, I did a month in Patagonia, did some cool climbing in Red Rocks, got to do this really cool link up. We did Breiteville and Ames Ice House in a day recently, spent a couple weeks in the creek. And yeah, Mike and I are doing a presentation on the quad on the 11th in like 5 days. We were supposed to go over that presentation, and instead we climbed the Titan. I haven't even seen it. Mike put it together, so we're just going to wing that on the 11th, I guess. But we got to climb the Titan, Finger of Fate. It's a 50 Classics climb. It was a really cool day. And then yeah, last slide here. This is just a quote that I've really identified a lot with, and I like to live by a lot. The whole quote is actually pretty long, but this is the wave tops here. He just says, the function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. And that's, I feel like I got kind of a late start in this outdoor scene, and especially in the climbing scene. So I feel this really impending sense of urgency right now to catch up and like fit all this stuff in and really make these days count. And that's how I'm trying to live my life right now. Is I have this, the feeling like I could be doing more is just like debilitating for me, and I can't live with that. So I'm really trying to fill these days up with as much as I can, and yeah, so that's how we got here. So thanks for coming out, everybody. That's
Any questions? Folks have questions.
Oh yeah, any questions? I know there's a lot of talking, so I'd be surprised with it.
How was the Titan?
It was nasty. It was bad. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Coming from Sierra Grande, at least, big mud pile.
Why did you choose South Lake?
Yeah.
Like over other parts of Tahoe, or in general? So getting out of the Navy into 2022, we were leaving San Diego, and we didn't know. It was kind of this overwhelming choice of like we could go anywhere in the country. We didn't really have anything tying us anywhere. So we made like a spreadsheet, and we were between Salt Lake City and Tahoe, because on paper those sounded the best. But I just wanted to be in the Sierra, we ended up choosing Salt Lake City based on I was planning on going to the medical program at the University of Utah at the time. So we moved to Salt Lake and hated it, instantly hated it. I have nothing good to say about Salt Lake. It's just too much. It's way too much city. It's just too much city for us. It's very overstimulating for me. It just didn't feel like home at all. I mean, literally within a week of us living there, we were like, damn, we should have gone to Tahoe. So we rented our house out. We were gonna try to make it to 2 years so we could sell the house without paying a ton of taxes. And we eventually were like, I don't even care, let's get out of here. So we rented the house out for a while and then decided, we were just really eager to get where we were going. And we knew that we were gonna be here at some point. And we're like, let's go. Let's stop dragging our feet. Like, let's start building a community out there. So now we're here and we're stoked to be here. We love it. Oh, pet snails. I'm down to one pet snail. But he's the original, the original, yeah. We've had a pet snail for almost 2 years now. I picked him out in the backyard and he's living large. He's got a whole like ecosystem. Yeah, he's killing it.
Why was there sometimes like blue circles on people's faces?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. They're still active duty in the military, and some of the work they do, they don't want to have their identities public. So if guys are still active duty serving, I just try to hide their names and faces until they get out. I did the same thing when I was in. I have no evidence of me being in the military anywhere on the internet until recently. So, which is kind of the way I like it.
How's Charlie?
Charlie's good. Yeah, Charlie had a little bit of a scare. Ate like 30, 10 summer sausages, plastic and all. Had to get her stomach pumped. But she's good now. She's at home. I'm sure very comfortable and sleeping.
What's your next mission? What's the goal?
Yeah, I haven't publicly shared it yet, but we.
You don't have to.
Yeah, no, I will say a little bit of a teaser. We've got we're making a movie, and La Sportiva just pledged to fund the whole thing, and it's going to be pretty big, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's a lot of pressure to get we have a film crew now, and I gotta do it now. I can't just do the whirl and be like, oh, I'm kind of over that. Definitely committed, but I've been really excited about this for a while, and I'm excited to get going. But this will be significantly the biggest thing by a large margin, and I just wanted to document it a little bit better than my phone camera, which is where everything else has come from historically. So we got in touch with some people, and everybody's really excited about it. So. But we'll be spending this whole year in the Alpine, hopefully in the High Sierra. So yeah. Did it? Cool. All right.
That was amazing. All right, you heard that was incredible, Tanner. You nailed it. I think one more round of applause. Okay, you heard Tanner talk about his nonprofit, Crux. Crux what? I keep on forgetting. Wilderness, Crux Wilderness. This is to get veterans outside using climbing and wilderness for mental health. I think we can all relate to that, how valuable being outside is.